Are you somebody that is having challenges in your relationships? Maybe it's with your beloved or your person, your ex, or your family member, or your sister, or your siblings, or your children, or whatever it is. We all have upsets when it comes to our relationships. It's part of the human experience. And one thing I've found as a master spiritual coach and as a doctor of divinity training thousands of people around the globe is that 9 out of 10 people are dealing with relationship issues that are affecting their wealth, their health, and everything, their energetics, because it's all a game of energy. So if you're somebody who wants to actually understand what is the one thing that is destroying your relationships and what is the one thing that's going to actually have them thrive, you definitely want to listen to this. Welcome to the Dr. Erin Show. May you live your truth. Hi there, I'm Dr. Erin, Doctor of Divinity and Master Spiritual Coach. And today I'm going to break on down the one thing, really the one thing that I have come to over many, many years of dealing with my own relationship issues, ups and downs, and helping so many women and men around the globe. The one thing that is actually really destroying your relationships, or if you flip it, it is the one thing that's going to have them thrive. So let's break this on down. I want to first share a little bit about the conversation today is near and dear to my heart, which is relationships, which of course, for all of us, we care deeply about our relationships. And for me, I was somebody who came from a very dysfunctional upbringing. My mother was definitely codependent. I remember being a little girl and watching her, and she would be sad when she was single, and then she'd get into a relationship and she'd get really super high, like literally high on life. Everything was amazing, and then she'd slam down. They'd begin to get in arguments. She'd become miserable again, and then that relationship would leave, and then it was a whole cycle. It was like the merry-go-round over and over again. I see this, of course, with a lot of the women that I train around the world. I would say 9 out of 10 of the women that I work with are dealing with some level of relationship toxicity, dysfunction, and even codependency. And I personally went through it for many, many years in my life. I had ups and downs. I would get into relationships. I would make them wrong. I would argue. We'd break up. It was like, oh, then I get high on life because I was, single and didn't have to deal with that. And then I would slowly feel sad and lonely. And then I'd bring in the next relationship. Some people call it love addiction. Some people call it upsets. It doesn't matter. It's just a spectrum. Okay. So it may not be always with your, partner or your husband or wife or your, intimate partner. It may be with your friends. Some people are really good with their partners, but then they are always having upsets with their family members or their friends or whatever it is. So you really want to get real with yourself. I think that's the first thing is looking at your life and thinking, where am I versus where do I want to be? Okay. And we have to really get real because nothing changes until we change. So today I'm going to not break down all of the distinctions for you, but the one thing that has really helped me the most and my clients the most. And as we teach spiritual psychology, what we're teaching is that there's source, there is spirit within our true self that is really manifesting and projecting into, the 3D world. But it's going through the filter of the subconscious, the filter of what really is the false identity, the limited beliefs, and it's projecting out and then it's reflecting back in through everything. So for me, I know that one of the things that was projecting out in relationships was low self-worth. So no matter what happened, even I just really couldn't even call in a healthy person because I needed to fulfill the identity of that I'm not lovable. Something's wrong with me. Because when you come from parenting where my mother was an alcoholic and also really I would consider a love addict. She was in and out of relationship all the time. My father also, he went to go find another family. And so for me, not making them wrong, but rather what I kind of began to have as a little girl was the identity that something's wrong with me and I'm not lovable. Okay. And that was the meaning I put on it. Okay. And so not to blame them, but rather to know that just the human nature of the spiritual psychology of how we create. Okay. So I want to bring you one distinction today because we have an energy update. Every week I come in here with an energy update. So, I highly recommend to subscribe. You can download the Universal Law calendar below because we go over Universal Law distinction as well. And I come on here. Sometimes I talk about energy updates from astrology, even though I'm not I don't typically teach astrology, but all the energetics are exactly the same as universal law, which I have my doctorate in, right? So we come in here each week. I want you to be able to binge these. We do them for about 11 to 22 minutes and bringing one distinction into your life so that you can carry this throughout your week and really look at it and get real with yourself, okay? So this distinction this week is that there's only one thing that is really destroying your relationships. Okay. There's one thing, and it is making other people wrong or making them the source. Okay. When you make somebody the source of your joy, you instantaneously make them the source of your suffering. I want you to really get that. Okay. If you really get that, there's only one distinction spiritually that you need to master in this lifetime. And it's very hard to master, but it is basically handing your power over to things of the external world. The gaps of suffering is wanting people, places, and life to be different than they are. And then we want all these things different in the world, and we suffer because of it. Okay. So the reason why any relationship is suffering is because people are wanting the other person to be different, change them, fix them, all those things. I know it very well, right? It's like I fell in love with a very famous rock star years ago. I've told my story many times. And I was like, oh, I wanted this part of him, all of his charisma, all of his, he was handsome, great lover, very entertaining. But I didn't want all the things like that he cheated, lied, was just a lot of shenanigans, a lot of, just insanity. So I wanted only the good things, and I wanted all this, and I wanted to change and fix all these things over here. And that's not how life works. People are on their own track, right? So the one distinction we want to get today is to understand that there's only one thing that's happening, is that we are handing our power over to the external world. We're suffering. We want everyone to be different. And then it becomes this battle. And this is the mastery of relationships. The mastery of relationships is accepting people exactly as they are and then celebrating the things that you really, are in alignment with, or whatever is their strength, or whatever is the beauty and the gratitude that they have. That doesn't mean that we keep them in our inner circle or in a relationship with them, but that means that even if it may be your family, okay, family is a very common place where you can pick your friends, but you can't pick your family per se. We pick them from a spiritual perspective, but they're here as a masterclass for us because they're really the shadow and the light side of all of us. And so if you want your family to thrive, then we have to focus on the strength. Okay. And I've told the story many, many times of how there's certain family members that I'm like not as motivated to, like nurture versus say like my son, who I care so much about that I'm willing to really make sure that I'm always focusing on what is absolutely thriving there, focusing on making him right instead of wrong. Okay. And that's the key. So there's only one way to break free from toxic relationships. There's only one way to have your relationships thrive. And it is to no longer create them as your higher power, to no longer make them your source for your joy or your suffering. Okay. There's only one way to heal relationships, and it is to focus on people's strengths. In my opinion, I think that traditional psychology has done a lot of great things, okay? But it also has really hurt us as well, in that when we label people and we tell them they are X, Y, and Z, we're actually putting our indoctrination, our shoulds, and all those things on other people. There's all expressions in this world. Who's to say people need to communicate just the way you want them to communicate or the way the culture says, right? Or, anything. The bottom line is there's only one way to ruin a relationship, and it is to focus on people's weaknesses and make them wrong and judge them and all that thing. There's one way to make them right, which is focusing on their strengths, celebrating what is great about them, on honoring them and respecting them for exactly where they are in their journey. Okay. So this is a huge one. Okay. It's huge, especially because astrologically, we just went into Mercury went into retrograde, which means your exes are coming back or cycles that you have not completed that you didn't do right. Okay. So here I am. I've just moved over to Florida again, basing out of here. I have an ex over here that's been so amazing because, back in the day when we were together, I remember like we had our differences. And I remember really focusing on those differences and making him wrong at some level. And he did the same to me, right? So here we are as friends coming back together. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like I get to actually celebrate this human being. I get to, know we're not dating, but like I get to actually just honor him, respect him, and see the beauty that was there between us as even friends and stuff. Like he's an amazing human being. So it's just really cool to like watch and see yourself grow, right? And go, oh, let's see, if I made him wrong or wanted to fix him or change him, we couldn't even be in each other's lives. But we can as, celebrating those things. So hopefully you treat others the way you want to be treated. We all want to be celebrated. We want to be respected. We want to not be judged, okay? Nobody likes that. So as we go into Mercury retrograde, which we went into a few days ago, and again, I want you to be able to take these energy updates and they're timeless, okay? But some of the energetics going on, there's a lot of energetics, a lot of amazing things going on, a lot of political stuff. And it's the same thing. If you focus on politics and make it wrong, you're gonna suffer, okay? We want to celebrate and focus on what we do like. We're like water, okay? So my invitation this week as we go into this week's Universal Law of the Week. So as we go into this week's Universal Law of the Week, it is the Law of Dharma. And, Dharma in general is kind of like your purpose, okay? It doesn't have to be a career, right? A lot of the women I help, one of the biggest things I help people do is discover their soul's purpose and monetize it and make an impact doing what they're really here to do in their soul assignment, okay? But it may not be a career. Your purpose is really to clear yourself, your subconscious mind. Your purpose really is to have the wax on, wax off of work of loving unconditionally. And that's really what we're here to do. So the entire purpose of life is to love, right? So focusing on people's strengths. So my invitation today is to take some time, send some love letters, not love bombing, but love letters, gratitude letters. Think of your friends, think of the loved ones, even people that you're upset with or that you've been judging in the past, and just send them gratitude through the universe. And energetically, it has to shift at some level, right? You don't have to say anything, you don't have to do anything. When you consciously just do it at a soul level within you in the universe, it's going to shift energetically at some level, okay? So in that, just want to answer a few more questions about relationships, going to the Q&A part of today's little thing here. So some of the questions people ask, there's actually 12 questions on the newsletter. You can grab the newsletter as well. I go through all the astrology of this week and how it relates to spiritual psychology and some tips around that and how it relates to universal law. I also go into a lot of Q&A. So there's 12 questions here. Why do I keep attracting toxic people? Well, that is, what we really master within the school. I train and accreditate SPPC practitioners, spiritual psychology practitioner coaches, in universal law and E4 method in doing regressions of current lifetime, past lifetime, and compressing it for time compressing for future. So the reason why anyone keeps attracting toxic people, which I know I have been there for many years, I was there, is because you're toxic. Hate to break the news to everybody, but they want to point the finger, oh, you're a narcissist or you're that or whatever. But if you were healthy, you wouldn't stay in that relationship. You wouldn't keep in that vicious cycle. You cannot be with a toxic person if you're not toxic. And that's really hard to see because I remember back in the day when my ex was like cheating, he was lying. I was like, no, 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 it's him, it's him, it's him. But a toxic person calls in a toxic person. Okay. A dysfunctional, right? So what's dysfunction? It means it doesn't work. Okay. Toxic is just like it actually destroys. It actually like you lose money, your health goes down, right? It's literally toxic. Okay. So you have to take a look at your relationships and go, where is this? Is this healthy? Is it making my life better? Or is it dysfunctional? It's not working and it's really having everything stuck and impacting me negatively. Or is it actually toxic? And toxic means it's actually hurting you, hurting your health, hurting your wealth, hurting your literally it's hurting. And I remember this concept that it's dangerous to be with someone who's really toxic because if you're with an addict or anyone, you will become an addict because when you get that upset in relationships, are actually causing trauma, because trauma is not what happens to you, it's what's happening within you. And you get really upset, all these emotions, all these arguments, and you're deciding things. I hate, you. Oh, I don't want to live. Oh, I'm not enough. I'll never love again. I'll never trust again. These commands, these negative commands are going to go into the subconscious. So it's imperative. Healing your relationships and doing this work is imperative. So if you're in a toxic relationship, a dysfunctional relationship, or just rather actually, we call it anorexic, of just pushing people away and just never dealing with it, that's considered anorexic from a relationship standpoint. All those are unhealthy. Okay. You got to keep communicating. You got to stay in and take responsibility and heal the places that need to be healed. You don't want regrets, okay? So in this, take a deep breath in. I'm just saying thank you and grateful for any and all of my exes. I'm saying grateful for all the lessons and the blessings, and I recognize and I take full responsibility for anything and everything that occurred because I, at some level, called that in. I'm recognizing right here the beauty of all relationships and all the abundance of love that I have and that we all have, and we open up our eyes and open up our hearts. I'm giving gratitude for the relationship, how I relate and my relatability to everything, everyone, every circumstance. I say thank you for the soul assignment of family. Thank you for the soul assignment of beautiful friends. Thank you for the soul assignment for any of our partners or husbands or wives or intimate partners. Saying grateful, knowing this is a class, a master class called life, and just knowing the perfection of it with gratitude. I release, as together we say, and so it is. And so it is. Okay, you guys. So you can grab the Universal Law free calendar below. You can grab the newsletter. And if you aren't already in the school, if you are dealing with relationship issues, even if you don't want to turn this work into a career, we have many people come into just the SPPC area of the certification that just want to do their work, because in there you're going into triad pod calls, you're coming into transformational, coaching calls, you're doing all the deep work, and literally, like, you can't afford to not transcend and transform your life. These things, the amount of health issues that you're going to have that are better, the amount of income you're going to make, the amount of better relationships, the amount of everything. You just know that the best investment you can ever make is in your consciousness. I truly, truly believe that, because then we get just all areas of our life exponentially get better. So in that, have a beautiful, blessed day, you guys, and may you live the truth.